We're on Challah, Perek Dalid, Mishnah Zayin, the 7th Mishnah in the 4th chapter of Challah. So in order to understand this Mishnah, we have to have a few introductions. We're going to talk about Suria. Suria is a place in the north of Israel, okay? The Wikipedia says. It is the halachic name of an area that was nichbash al yedei David HaMelech. It was captured by David HaMelech, conquered. Supach al yado Eretz Yisrael. He annexed it to Eretz Yisrael. But let me make this a little bit smaller. I don't know if you can read it with me. Shetach zo ma'amad beinaim. It has an intermediate halachic status for Eretz Yisrael because Chazal were critical of David because he conquered Aram Naharaim. He conquered Suria before he conquered the rest of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, for that reason, they said some parts of Suria are part of Eretz Yisrael, and some parts of Suria, in some ways, Suria is like Eretz Yisrael, and in some ways Suria is not like Eretz Yisrael. I got a little chart for you, okay? So the halacha is the following. If you buy a field in Suria, if you own a field, it's like you bought an Eretz Yisrael, and you're chayav in Maaserot, and we'll say challah as well. Chayav in Trumot and Maaserot. But if a Jew buys fruits or vegetables or tevuah, if you buy produce in Suria, it's patur min maaser, like chutz la'aretz, because we say, if you buy it from a goy, the goy bought the land, yesh kinyan the goy b'Suria la'afkia min maaser. The goy has a possibility he has a kinyan, he has the power of acquisition in order to remove the obligation of ma'asrot in Suria. Okay, that's number one. So now the question, of course, is, so I know if the person owns a field, he's chayav. If he buys fruit, he's patur. What if you have an aris? An aris is a certain kind of sharecropping arrangement that was very common in the times. Gemara and Bab Metzia talks about it extensively. There's different types of sharecropping. One is called a choker. A choker is the guy who says, listen, you give me the field, I'll plant the field, and I'll pay you X. However much money it is, it doesn't matter. An aris is a different kind of sharecropper. The aris is the guy who says, okay, I'll plant, you give me the field, I'll plant it, you have to give me certain supplies, etc., etc., and then we'll share in the tevuah, we'll share in the produce from the field, a certain percentage, 30%, 40%, whatever the percentage they decide to agree on. That's an aris. So the question, of course, is an aris who is a sharecropper to a non-Jewish field in Suria, chayav masrot, trumot masrot, and shvi'it, or patur trumot and masrot and shvi'it? That's the discussion of our Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Yisrael shayu arisim the nachrim b'Suria. If a Jew is an aris, he's a sharecropper to a non-Jewish owned field in Suria, Rabbi Eliezer mechayev peroteim b'maasot u'b'shvi'it, Rabbi Gamliel poter. Let's look at the chart I made for you. Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayav in maasot and shvi'it, and Rabbi Gamliel says you're patur from maasrot and shvi'it. Now we have to ask ourselves, anytime we see a machloket like this, you have to ask ourselves which one is obvious and which one is interesting. So, do we think that arisut, sharecropping, is like buying a field, or do we think it's like buying produce from a field? So logic would dictate, I believe logic would dictate, that we think it's like buying the produce. You don't own the field, the non-Jew owns the field. If that's true, then Ram Gamliel would be obvious. You're patur mi masrot and shvi'it. Ram Gamliel seems to make this the case. Okay, so then we have to understand why, according to Rabbi Eliezer, are you chayav in masrot and shvi'it? So let's look at the Bar Tanura. Rabbi Eliezer says, mechayav, why? Kasavar, he felt, asu Suria ki Eretz Yisrael la'idiyan masrot u'shvi'it. So you must hold, the Bar Tanura says, one possibility is, Rabbi Eliezer held, that Suria was like Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't just the intermediate kind of land that was chayav only in certain situations. That there's Rabbi Eliezer fundamentally argued about the nature of Suria in general. That's one interpretation that we saw in the Bar Tanura. The Yerushalmi says something fascinating. Yerushalmi says, this is from the Kahati, no, it's a knas shekansu l'Yisrael al shena'aseh aris l'goy. That if you wanted to become an aris, the Chachamim said, and this is also based on Yerushalmi, which had a certain set of values, a Jew should not become an aris to a goy. You're promoting when you sharecrop and you work the land of a goy, you're giving him more of a stake in the land that we would like to be Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, in order to prevent Jews from taking on the sharecrop deal, Chachamim said, is chayav in masrot and shvi'it. Which would encourage him, of course, to find other deals, because if he's chayav in masrot and shvi'it, he's already losing a significant percentage of his produce, as opposed to where he would go to another case or whatever, to a Jew, at least even the Jew, they would share the masrot and the shvi'it. Let's go back to our Mishnah. Next case, what about Challah and Suria? So we learned about Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Eliezer seems to say it's like Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Gamliel seems to say Suria is not like Eretz Yisrael. So what about Challah? We're going to see in a second. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Gamliel omer shtei chalot b'Suria. Rabbi Gamliel says you have to take off 2 chalot in Suria. We're going to see in the very next Mishnah, in Mishnah Chet, that in Chutz La'aretz, one who takes off Challah has to take off 2 types of Challah. So we'll see this in the next Mishnah. Watch the next Mishnah and you'll understand. Learn the next Mishnah, okay? So therefore, Rabbi Gamliel clearly says that Suria is like Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Eliezer omer, Rabbi Eliezer says Challah achat. He says it's 1 Challah, okay, because one, just like in Eretz Yisrael. And we're going to see, well, we'll see in the next Mishnah what Challah of Eretz Yisrael, the difference between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. But anyway, Rabbi Eliezer says you treat Suria like Eretz Yisrael, it's 1 Challah. And we see exactly the same. Okay? Remember the Bartunura. Why would the Bartunura say and the Rambam say that halacha is your chayav in Maaser and Challah? Because now you have, this makes sense. 1 Challah like Eretz Yisrael, and that's similar to the din of Eretz Yisrael and Trumot in Maaser and Challah. Whereas Rabbi Gamliel who said it's patur mi Maaser and Challah in Suria, makes sense. Just like Chutz La'aretz, you'd have to bring 2 Challah. So we see here that in the case of Arisut, Rabbi Eliezer is machmir, chayav, but he's mekil in the case of challah because you only have to bring 1 challah. Whereas Rabbi Gamliel is mekil in trumot and masra, but he's machmir in challah. Okay, very nice. Except, says the Mishnah, what happened? Achazu kulo shel Rabbi Gamliel, kulo shel Rabbi Eliezer. This is the great thing about people. As soon as they hear, oh, your rabbi let me do that, I remember when the issue came out about can you kosher glass stoves on Pesach. As soon as it used to be that we did not kosher glass stoves on Pesach. But as soon as the rabbi, I think it was the CRC in Chicago, as soon as they said it was okay, everybody started doing it. Because the CRC is a reputable hashgacha. So as soon as one reputable rav says it's okay, everybody starts doing it. So what happened? The people took on the leniency of Rabbi Gamliel, which is what? Rabbi Gamliel is lenient in Hafashat Challah. But then they took on the leniency of Rabbi Gamliel in Maaserot. But they also took on the leniency of Rabbi Eliezer in Challah. Of course, it doesn't make any sense because they both don't, they argue with each other fundamentally about the nature of Suria. People don't care. Your rabbi says you can do it, fine. Your rabbi says you can do it, fine. Chazru linogs, and the Chazal obviously didn't like that. So somehow they I don't know, they had a kenes, they had I don't know what they did, but they got the people to return. Kediva and Rabbi Gamliel b'shnei drachim. They forced people to return to the halacha, or they encouraged the Hamun Am to say this is not appropriate. You should follow the halacha of Rabbi Gamliel in both ways, in both cases. And therefore, they were patur mi Maaser and Challah, which is significant. That could be a significant outlay. And they took them to take off 2 chalot for challah in Suria, like Chutz La'aretz, which is, we're going to see in the next Mishnah, a much, much less significant financial outlay. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, email me at arspoter@gmail.com. We'll dedicate this Mishnah's learning to the memory of my father, Simcha B'Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.